I have Laura on our podcast today, who is a seasoned copywriter. And today we are going to discuss, and we're also going to talk about how the scope of being a copywriter is going to evolve with the consideration of AI. Copywriters are not going away, their role is just going to simply evolve. So, welcome, Laura, to the podcast. Just
Thank
now for you.
you.
Thank you for joining.
Hey, James.
I wanted to dive in today by first saying, like, just for the folks who don't know, like, what a copywriter does, or who a copywriter is, or like why they're relevant, can you just maybe start by talking to us about like the role of a copywriter from a CX perspective?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me here. You may hear my dog barking in the back at some point because that's what she does, but just
I
in
have
case, let
two.
me know if
You,
it's bothering you.
no, not at all. You're good to go. I
Well,
have two dogs. You're good.
oh, that's good. Let
Mm,
me give you a brief overview. Copywriter is, to me, just a label in the sense that, yes, we talk about copywriters in a very broad term, but usually it's just people that manage content from different perspectives. So in my case, yes, I'm a copywriter, but I'm also a content strategist, a content creator. So anything that has to deal with basically words and like you said, CX, UX perspective of it, which means anything that appears in front of a final customer, final user. And it could be on, whatever platform or system. So it could be on an app, it could be on a website, it could be on my book in my case, since I'm also like an actual just writer. And but in the specific in copywriting, the focus of the job is copy. So copy is that text, that those words that you read, you find, you understand, you have on any experience that you're having on a digital level.
mm,
And so, let's say, I don't know, you're hired as a copywriter slash UX writer sometimes, which sometimes is also interchangeable, where you have to help people come up with what to say for an app and how to onboard someone somewhere. Example, for all the experiences that I had when I was working with one company, I was just helping with improving the way that the experience would look to the eyes of the user. With another company, I was helping with coming up with the words and the content, or as we say, copy, that was needed to explain something. So, like a help center or a support center or a customer service
mm.
or explaining what a feature is. So if it's a telecom company that is trying to tell you if you bundle up on this and this phone and iPhone and I mean iPad and whatever, you have to explain to the final customer what this bundle is. So that is where the copywriter comes into place. It's where we explain to you. We want to make your life easier without you having to interpret what's being said to you. That's what, to me, that's what copywriting is. It's basically just making life easier for the customers, for the final users, for the consumers of the content, the text, the products, the features, the whatever you have in front of you. And I think, that covers pretty much everything. So both content, UX, anything that is on a digital level.
Wow. So like in your background, you've covered all of those different channels, right? So you've done content creation, you've done advertising,
Strategy, yeah,
strategy.
advertising,
Wow.
monetization, marketing. Yes. So anywhere words were needed, I was basically just helping companies here and there.
Wow, that's amazing. And you've obviously worked for some pretty big companies before.
Yeah.
Um, what are some of the like misconceptions about copywriters? Like, would you say like is there like a one or two things where people just get it wrong? Like, either
hmm
they're thinking that your scope is way bigger than it is, or maybe they've marginalized your scope to too small.
Well, I can tell you, a lot of people just think, oh, I can do it. This happens because, they say, well, everybody can write, so I can write it. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
and so you have even for all the design teams that I worked with, or not project managing or anything, because project management is something different, but with the design teams, you have people that since they were creating the designs, and words are things that we use on a regular level. We're humans. This is what we do. We use words with our mouth. We use words when we write. We think we whatever. And so, they do the work that someone else could be doing, and they say, well, I did it because I can do it. But there are people that just know how to write and how to speak because it's innate, it's our nature. And there are people that actually know how to do it good and well, because it's not just that you're using it on a daily level, you're actually studying it, and you have to go through I don't know, degrees and whatever you want. So
Yeah.
that's the misconception that we have, is that copywriting, oh, it's something that anybody can do. And that's not always true. Like, anybody
Mhm.
can write, but not
Mhm.
everybody can copyright.
Fair. And to be very honest, because I like to keep it real, like as a product owner, I have had those thoughts in my mind, like, oh, okay, I'll just like you. So just to give you like, I feel like there has always been like an interesting relationship with product owners and copywriters. I feel like copywriters, like they know what they're supposed to do, they know how it's supposed to be either written or said. And then there's also the product owner who's like, but I want it said this way,
Hmm.
right? And I feel like that's where sometimes the two can run into conflict, where it's like the copywriter is kind of abiding by experience and these rules that they have over years of just understanding how to speak to a person. And then the product owner has like their own vision and what they want conveyed. And sometimes as a result, product owners will do things like, okay, I'm just going to write the copy myself, right? And I have seen product owners get slapped on the hand, on the wrist by the copywriter. Like I've seen copywriters storming out of their office and like, don't you ever do that again. Um, but I will say this, in the from a marriage standpoint, I feel like copywriters and product owners should be on the same page. Like this marriage has to work. And one reason why I say that is we're both responsible for whatever's out there. So like if let's just take, for example, you and I are working on a project for an airline company. Let's say, okay, we have JetBlue wants us to, like, okay, so like I have this new feature in the app and I'm going to need some copy to inform customers about it in the email, etc. It goes out there to customers and maybe something goes wrong, maybe it has a poor take rate or whatever the case may be. They're going to come looking for me, and they're going to potentially come looking for you. And what's going to look really bizarre is if we get both pulled into a meeting and then we're just pointing the finger at each other, or we're not coming out as a united front. For me, and I would say this to any product owner out there or anyone working in CX, like make a copywriter your BFF or at least like a first cousin, because I can almost with certainty the win and loss is going to live with between how the relationship is between you both, right? Like, is the right language right for the CTA? Is there a good enough CTA? Is the story compelling enough? All those different things, they're gonna come look at us both. So I personally love having a relationship with a copywriter. As a product owner, I will say I have had those moments, those intrusive thoughts where I'm like, I'm gonna just do this myself, and it hasn't gone well. But with that said, I wanted to kind of segue into, and thank you for that overview of what a copywriter does and where there might be some misconceptions. Um, that actually opens up a good opportunity for us to talk about AI a little bit and how the maturity of AI may impact copywriting. But before we go down that path, let me share two stories with you. One story, and this is where this will help tell the AI portion a little bit better. But like, I just had a podcast with a pastor, which we just posted on YouTube, and Um, one thing that we talked about was, are you a person of faith by chance?
Let's say I believe there's something, but I'm not a religious person. Like, I don't follow a specific
Fair
religion.
enough. Perfect. Fair enough. So,
And either way, I wouldn't get offended if you said anything
okay.
whatsoever. So you're good.
So we talking about Christians for a second. We looked at this church. I was doing a podcast with Nadia, and she shared with me. AI wrote this entire sermon for a pastor. Okay, and if you know anything about, the leader of a church, whether he's a pastor, priest, um, regardless of your faith, you want that person to be as authentic as possible and as genuine as possible. Because being authentic and genuine makes you relatable, which means people can find a connection between the two. So we talked about that scenario, and it did not go well. Then, also on a separate podcast, I did a demo of me having Gemini explain to my wife why it took me so long at the grocery store. Okay.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to do a test. I said, I'm going to see how powerful it can be. I gave it the full scenario. I was like, this is what happened. She sent me to Whole Foods. I left at this time. I went this way. I was like giving it all the details so it can really have enough of information to give me a compelling like response. So I did it live. I shared with my wife. She's like, no, it's completely dry, and that's not how you sound. That's not how you talk. Um, and then what was the third scenario? The third scenario was I was talking to Diraj about dating apps and
Mm.
how I wonder if there's a risk where people will start to use AI to cultivate the language in that. Because in a dating app, it's all about, your first judgment is like the face, and then you're going to swipe, and then from there you can start to develop some sort of conversation, right? But what if that conversation is being led by mostly AI, right? And we had a debate on that, and we were like, that's probably not going to work. So, with that said, I just gave three scenarios of where people have attempted to use AI as a way to curate the message or the language they want to use, and it didn't necessarily go that well. So, with how AI is maturing, I wanted to get your thoughts on, does that change the scope of a copywriter? Does it enhance it? Does it increase it? Should we be worried? What are your thoughts?
Okay, I can tell you something. Um, as an AI specialist, because I'm also on the board of advisors for this big PR company that is like worldwide, but it's based in the US. We talked about these things a lot in our cohorts with the clients and everything. Plus, I also had the chance to, explain my point of view on this topic in other conversations that I had, like conversations with other creatives for other, podcasts and everything. And there's always this one thing that I usually say to people. AI, at the end of the day, AI is just a tool. So everybody keeps getting so scared by the fact that they're saying, oh, AI is going to substitute us. It's going to basically annihilate everything that we've been working on for years to develop, even on the work, on the, let's say, workplace
Mm.
for people like us in this case. And there's always this comparison that I always do. I used to be a translator before, obviously, because I'm not from here originally, yada yada.
What
And
languages did
thus,
you translate?
what languages?
Yeah. Was there more than
So
one or just one?
yeah, so my native language is Italian. So usually my pairs of languages are English, Italian, Italian, English, but I also speak French, Spanish, and German and Portuguese. So all the main European languages are the ones that I can translate back into my native language and my second language because I'm bilingual in English. So I usually do pairs that mix match sometimes. And so in the past, I was doing translations, I was doing proofreading of books that were in different languages that the native language that they were written in. So, I was working as a translator slash editor or proofreader. And then tools like Trados or other, translating platforms came up.
Mm.
And the translator job started getting lower and lower and lower. No more translation gigs. And people were like, well, now we can just translate our documents with just a click. We just upload the document, we ask the tool or the software to translate it. And
Mm.
that's where, the job is done. You don't need to pay a person. It's going to be almost immediate. And so the translating job became obsolete. And I'm talking end of 1990s, beginning of 2000s. Okay. So that was 26 years ago now. What happened next is that translations appear to not have a soul. So if people were using translation, like this translating tools for books, for example, like novels and literary pieces, the books came out with no soul. So in the original language, it made sense. In the translated language, it felt empty. Sometimes it was too literal. Sometimes the translation was not accurate enough. And there's always this anecdote that I always say. So I basically helped in realizing that the human factor was still needed because someone reached out to me about a manual for like a company that was working with machines and engines
Mhm.
and stuff like that. And they used a translator, as in translating tool, to
Mhm.
translate their manuals. So in this page or in this manual, there now I need to figure out how to explain this because it happened when I was in Italy, but I'll try to make it understand in English. So the word, or in the sentence that we're translating, the word was in the native language what the tool translated as communisting espionage.
Whoa.
And that's because the, let's say, word that the tool was trying to translate was
Right.
the red light that will turn on the machine when something doesn't work. So red and light in that language, in the native language, was red, the color red, and then light was a synonym of spy, kind of like spyware, spy,
Mhm.
okay?
Mhm.
And so translating it into English, red spy or red light, as in red alarm on the machine, the machine
Wow.
translated it as communistin because it was red, espionage because it's a word similar to spy and light. And
Wow.
so that was just to give you an example where they said we need to focus on editing this because this doesn't make any sense. And so I helped them realize what needed to be changed. And I saw a lot of these examples where just because it was either too literal or too close into the meaning of the original name, but it wasn't actually interpreted for that specific scenario, it just started turning into a mess. And what happened next is that translators eventually started being hired for those jobs that now are called localization specialists. And so localization is what happened after the whole translating issue started happening, because to localize copy, you need to speak another language, first of all. So you're an actual translator who is making copy ideal for a market that is outside of the market where you're working at. And so localization and the localization specialists and the localization teams, they are basically the new translators that are just now being relabeled
Mm.
to work on the digital level. Okay. So to, you know, link back to what you were asking about AI and the future of the copywriting in this case. Now, all the copywriters are kind of like freaking out because a lot of content that is out there, and it's, it's not me just discovering hot water, it's just what's happening. A lot of content is just AI generated. Even, in the place where we were working together, we had a lot of AI generated stuff, which is okay. But then, even while we were working, we realized that I had to come into place and actually fix the issues that the generated AI content was producing. So there will be no, this is that time, just like when it happened with the translators, where a lot of people will just rely on AI to produce all this copy and all this text and all this content. So we just have to hang in there until we will be called back and
Hit a
say,
bubble.
hey, we need
Yep.
that human factor back because things are not working properly. Like you said, this is not the tone that we want to give. No matter how well you write the prompt and you just want to say, use a very, I don't know, friendly tone, don't use this and this punctuation, blah, blah,
Mm.
blah, you still need that human factor that makes it so it either aligns with the brand that you're trying to sell or it aligns with the end goal that you want the customer, the end goal as in end feeling, let's call it that way. Because
Mm.
if I'm trying to sell something to a customer or a potential customer and the customer feels that something's off, they're not going to buy my product. And in order for the customer to not feel that mismatch, you need the human factor. And the human
Yeah.
factor is something that is still missing in anything that is produced by AI.
Yeah.
Not just the tone, when your wife said this doesn't sound like you, no
Yeah.
matter how you want to input the prompt and say, make it sound like me, there's no way that the machine can actually just match your style perfectly.
Right.
You can still
There's a
tell.
yeah, that's a good point, right? There's a level of authenticity. And with that, I do feel like for me, I feel very similar. Like I feel like we're in this rush now. It's like, okay, like we're not I think we're still trying to figure out the relationship with human and AI in a way. We're in a sense where like, okay, on one hand we're looking at it as like, oh, this is great, this can do all these different things, and like it's causing this like ripple of like fear of like, oh, it's going to replace these jobs. But at the end of the day, it's a tool. It's a tool that we can use, right? It's a very very good tool to help us do our jobs better, make our lives a little bit better. But it's not in turn, and it was killing me because it's like, all these buzzwords are causing so much like chaos, and like people are just like quivering and stuff like that. But like the one thing I will say is just, if it sounds like leaning solely on AI, it's like basically it's like I'm cooking the food, but you're not gonna get any seasoning. You need the actual chef here who's going to season the food. But if you just want bland food, I can mass produce that, no problem. But if you
Yeah.
want the seasoning, you're gonna need to wait for the human to apply it
And
because.
not just that, and not just that. It's just you're trying to cook a food that eventually needs an ingredient that the
Mm,
AI can't find, and so the final product is just like not gonna be the final dish that you were planning on doing. You know
mm-hmm,
what I mean? So like
mm-hmm,
in this case, for example, if you're trying to, let me try to find an example. Because when you mentioned the food, it actually made sense, and then I thought about something else, and now it just slipped. But the way that this is going to happen, and the way that AI, first of all, it's not going to replace anything because you eventually we will still come back from another direction. So it's a temporary replacement. Let's just say it this way.
pendulum swing, yep.
But to use your metaphor about the food, so imagine you have to do, I don't know, you need ingredient A, B, C, D, E, and then ingredient B can actually have different um, applications and different ways of being used.
Mm-hmm.
AI doesn't know this. AI just knows that this is the ingredients. So, just
Mm-hmm.
to give you an example,
Whoa, that's a good
lemon
one.
peel. Okay,
Yeah.
so a lemon peel. So you know that in ingredients you have eggs, you have flour, and then you have a little bit of lemon zest. Okay, so if you write an ingredient, you're gonna write you need a lemon. And then in the development of the recipe, they're gonna say just a tad of lemon zest. Okay. So that is a human thing that a machine cannot do. So at the end of the day, you're gonna have a dish that eventually doesn't have the lemon zest. It's gonna have the whole lemon, for example. It's just a slice of lemon instead of the lemon zest. So these are all those nuances that
Mm,
AI cannot catch up on just because of the different
mm,
approaches. Because yes, what can happen is that AI can provide you 1,000 different final dishes because it tried to figure out exactly what you wanted from the recipe. So then eventually we will get to the point where to get to the final result, we will have 150 different versions of the same thing with just a slight different edit. And it gives you even more workload from a human perspective because then you need me to go through the 150, results and choose the one that actually makes sense. So
mm.
eventually we stop here, we let it work its magic, but then we will have to come back because of all the possibilities that it's going to create. So instead of making our life easier at some point, it will make it harder when we want a specific thing. When we want a general thing, just imagine instead of making a custom made pair of trousers, you're going to have, 1,000 different pairs of jeans that they all look the same. And they're different just like slightly in a little, on the small details.
Right.
So it's kind of like mass productions versus customization. And so this is where we come back to, and in the freaking
Yeah.
market, and we say, okay, so I'm gonna be the one that does the customization. If you want to keep doing produced whatever produced content, keep using AI. If you want to do the customization, you're gonna use the newly 2.0 version of a copywriter.
Yeah. So it's interesting because like as we were talking about the lemon, I was thinking about that phrase season to taste, and AI can't like you can't like you literally have to be there to taste it. It's like
Exactly.
it's interesting because there are going to be nuances here and there that like okay, so even like you think about when you are cooking maybe a burger, like, or if you have robots making a burger, it's very simple ingredients, same thing over and over again. Very small margin for error there. But like if I'm making a beef Wellington steak, there's so many different variables that you would need a human to intervene on. So that's good. And then the other thing that you mentioned about the customization, it makes me think too. Personalization is going to be the premium in the future. The companies, the brands that better personalize and relate to the customer, that's where that is going to be your value proposition in the future, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Everybody, so let's take the airline companies, right? Let's say JetBlue, let's say Delta, and United. All three can get me to California. All three of them are going to be the relatively same price. So how do I decide? Well, I can decide based on like how personalized your experience is for me, right? Like I may get three different emails from all three of them. One email uses language that I relate to, like, "Hey James, I know you got kids, and don't worry, we're gonna get you on board. You're gonna get on board fat first, right?" Like there's that A that I'm like, "Hey, that speaks to me. That's cool." You're already setting the tone to let me know that you know me and you're gonna vibe with me through the whole experience, right? Then
Correct.
there's the middle one, which is option B, which is probably ChatGPT rated created or something like that, which is like, "Hello, Mr. Customer. Just so you know, your boarding time is at this time and this time, and here are some instructions if you have children." That seems a little rigid to me. And then there's like maybe a third one that's like completely maybe human wrote, but it's not personalized to me, right? I'm gonna go with the one that's personalized to me because it speaks to me. It's telling me that you're thinking about taking some of the weight off my shoulders. You know I'm gonna be traveling with children. You know I'm about to be traveling 6 hours, and you're already putting information in there that's most relevant to me. In my opinion, that's something that a human can write. So like personalization is going to be extremely key in the future, in my opinion, for brands to actually stick out. It will be the value proposition. Um, so I think that's where I believe copywriters will also have some fruit from the tree. If they are watching this and they're concerned, like, am I going to be impacted? Like, companies are going to inevitably have to come back to you because, you know, the value proposition has to be diverse. We have to be able to speak to our customer. But I also wanted to kind of segue into another point.
Well, you basically nail it right there, because yes, not just the seasoning, also like you said, customization and personalization. I mean, some of those things can already be automated too. And I've worked with this other company that was doing this other, I don't know if you want me to name it, but there's nothing more, I think, personalized in terms of AI and robotics and stuff of
Mm,
Alexa, for example.
I
And
got
so
you.
having worked for that, I saw how things were developing, what was in the mind of the engineers and the people that were trying to actually, because I was in the personality and personalization team. So I was actually working on that. So not only creating the personality for Alexa, but also personalization for the end user. And
Mm,
so the way that I saw it develop was that the like my job in there was to think the way that the end user would think. What would I want to see with the Alexa devices? What did I like? Did I like the personalization? Did I feel it like it would be too invasive if it actually anticipated my needs? Like all these things that
mm,
only a human can think of. And
yeah.
so apart from just being the zest, I also, since you can tell that we're doing this around lunchtime because we keep on talking about food.
Yeah.
metaphors.
Yeah.
But so the taster, the person that tastes the food so they can tell you if they like it or not, and if they tell you if something needs to be changed. That is what our role would be eventually. We're going to be the ones that can tell you, this has worked,
Mm.
this didn't work because of this and this thing. So while only another human could put themselves in the shoes of another human, I don't think AI will be able to do that because one, it would just provide you with, like I said before, a billion different possibilities. And second of all, because as in this case, like your AI will never say this felt invasive. This felt like you stepped a little bit too much into my life. I don't
Yeah.
want this.
There's no
You
guardrails there.
know,
Yeah. Hmm.
so
That
it's both the zest and the taster.
got it. That brings up a good point. So like, if you had to summarize what you think the role of a like how the scope of a copywriter in the future, like what
Mm-hmm.
does that like if you were to um thing. And like that's part of the whole premise of this podcast is to like let's think about like 2028, 2027, right? Like let's
Mm-hmm.
get ahead. Like what do you think like the job description is going to look like for a copywriter in like the next 2 to 3 years?
Ooh, that's a great question. So I have a feeling that the description of the job will focus on ability to empathize with the customer. So all those qualities and values that AI cannot achieve. And so, what are we looking
So,
for? We're looking for a very empathetic person. We're looking for someone who can put themselves in the shoes of the customer. We're looking for someone who is not just you don't need to excel in what you write because we already have someone who's writing it for us. It's AI. We want someone who excels in looking at what we wrote so they can make it even better for the
mm,
and and that it can feel like we said before, it has to feel personal. It has to
mm,
feel relatable. So anything that gives that human factor to the automated and AI generated content that we just came up with in the past 2 years. So kind of like, let's bring that human factor back.
okay. So maybe will it be like okay, so like let's say in today's role it's more of like you're maybe brainstorming or idolizing or like in creating the thought, right? And then it's actually like, okay, and I'm going to write these thoughts down, and then I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to groom those ideas even further, and then I have a final product. Where in the future, it's going to be that first step, AI is going to do that, but you still got to carry out two and three. And in fact, as we're talking about it, I almost wonder if the load on copywriters becomes heavier because of the amount of stuff that AI can produce. So it may be, okay, before we only had like 5 or 6 different variants of or versions of this email template. But now with AI, let's do 100 because we're not limited by a person just creating them. The the AI can create like 100 different templates, 100 different ways to say it, and now we need this person to then go in, and then you're gonna add the seasoning, you're gonna do the QCing, you're gonna add love into it, and then it's going to become real. But you're now going to be reviewing like 100 different things as opposed to just maybe the 4 or 5 from before.
Yeah. So there's something I can tell you in this. So we will probably need to train also the product owners and the product manager in this
Hmm.
situation
Listening.
because about what we were saying at the very beginning, the fact that we need to work together and basically just
Yeah.
like be a single unit. The way that we were working when we were working together for that
Yeah.
company,
Mhm.
if you remember, I was offering you different versions of something, and then you would pick the one that you like the best, right? So now I'm not that person anymore. I'm not going to be the one that offers you that, the 5 options, and then you can choose the one that you like more. And sometimes you would say, oh, you know what, version B and version C, we can mix them together, and that exactly what I would want. So actually, kind of like that creative aspect of the copywriting. Now, what's going to happen, I think it's going to be you're not going to have me come up with those versions. You're going to have AI come up with, like you said, 1,000 different versions. So the role of the copywriter is still the one that says, okay, we can use this, this, and this. You either can choose to have me as a copywriter do a first skim through and you say, hey, we have 30 different version of this. You need to take it down to 5, and then I'll choose it. So you can either put the load onto the copywriter. Instead of being the one that comes up with the copy, I'm going to be the one that is editing and supervising and and choosing the 5 last versions where you will pick the one that you like. Or you can basically have, I don't know if it's going to be like a side role or maybe something that the product owner will have to do and say, just train, like put some boundaries within the machine and make sure that the machine doesn't produce more than 5 versions. So that way, my copywriter will look at those 5 versions, enhance them, and then I will pick. So I think it will depend basically eventually on the direction that the company you will be working for take. So if I take the one where I want the copywriter to actually take care of the skimming version, the skimming whatever moment, I'll let them do it.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you know, in this case, since it's going to be a little more to do, because as of right now, I'm not coming up with the ideas and giving you 5 versions. The ideas are already there. Now my job is to review all those things. And sometimes it's a more mental load than actually do the creative job. So do we want to keep the creativity into the copywriter, or do we want to remove the creativity of the copywriter and just make them be like a reviewer and a very technical person? So I have a feeling we will see these 2 trends. We will have companies that actually will still value the creativity, and so they will say, you know what, it's going to be you, product owner, you're going to be telling AI to not come up with 1,000 different versions, just do 5. And then our copywriter will still be valued as the creative mind behind it. It actually helps you get a better product out to the public. Mm-hmm. Or you're going to have the other companies that will not care at all about having that creativity behind, and they just want production. And so, no, we just want the copywriter to look through all the 30 versions, come up with 5, and then you will pick among those 5. I think we will see this trend. And at the same time, I have a feeling that people will wake up and they will realize that if I am the brand that shows creativity over, I don't want to say mass production, but something like that.
Yeah.
Quality over quantity, basically. Yeah. If you choose quality, that is the brand that is going to grow and grow. And the other one is just going to be, something for everybody to just consume.
Right. So I agree. Like it's like in the world of, where the competition's getting real tight. The walls between what separates us and our product offering is just becoming thinner. Next comes like, what's your value proposition, right? That personalized moment, that personalized information. Like I can't tell you like how much of a difference it makes when you feel like you're getting a letter that's tailored to you and not the masses. When it says, "Hey James," not "Dear customer," that hits different, right? When it says "you" instead of "customers," it hits different. And I think that's where the light is going to shine in the future of like, okay, well, I've got Delta, United, and American, but like Delta like knows me, dude. Like they send me text messages. They're like, "Hey James, I hope you and the kids are ready for check-in, and don't worry, someone will take the car seat at the gate for you." Like that, It's a whole lot different than check-in. Here's step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Like, and I'm like reading this versus like it's a letter. James, check in like you normally do. There'll be an agent at the gate. Like you didn't give me the step. You made it kind of conversational and personalized to me. So
yeah.
I feel like that's going to be super, super important for the future. And then one last point I wanted to bring up, like when it comes to the world of AI and being able to use, and again, AI is an amazing tool, right? Like this is not a let's poop on AI. This is
Absolutely
more
not.
Us realizing that AI is not going to come and choke us out and put us in the box, but it's going to actually be there along the ride for us to help us to whatever destination we're trying to get to. Do you feel like like, do you have like anything in the back of your mind that does concern you, or things that, you know, people should be considerate of? Like in my last couple of sessions, the one thing that we've gotten to is like, if you lean too much on AI, you will lose authenticity. And then you also like, with me trying to leverage AI for my marital issue, right? Like that didn't go well. Like, do you have anything like that in the back of your mind where you're thinking about like AI is just like people are gonna use it and it's gonna cause this negative effect potentially?
Mm, yes, actually. So I was writing a whole paper about it that I wanted to present in this seminar or something that is going to
Oh,
happen
cool.
in Italy. And then eventually I said, you know what, I need a little more time to actually develop this. But it was based kind of like on what you're saying. So having a background in behavioral, in psychology, and I'm a behavioral therapist when I'm not a copywriter or something, or a writer, I came up with this project where I'm kind of like, how you can use AI kind of like a therapist. So a lot of people, instead of going on WebMD to, they actually, uh, uh, there was a time where people would just look for the symptoms of your disease online and then on
Yeah,
Google, and Google will tell you you're about to die. Now, what's
yo, you should have been
happening?
dead 3 days ago. That's what it is.
There you go. Something that is happening more and more often is that people rely, so instead of talking to a therapist, you
Yeah.
just write whatever you want and then AI is going to help you process it. And so I'm writing this book where I can see both the pros and the cons of doing this. And also on a personal level. So I'm actually testing it to see what happens. I'm taking down notes. And something that I can tell you is that while sometimes in this field, but basically can be applied to any other field, yes, it helps to some extent, but you need to be able to recognize where that needs to stop. And that is something that is scary to me because I know that not everybody has the capacity or whatever to actually say, okay, this just went too far. I just have to take a step back. And so let me try to give you an example super fast. Example, you just had an argument, okay? So you just had an argument with either a friend or your significant other, whatever. And what AI can help you to do is instead of lash out on them, for example, let's pretend that you can either be diagnosed with emotional regulation issues or you simply have like a hard temper, whatever. But you actually consciously decided that instead of doing the same patterns over and over, this time you want to have some help. You don't rely on a therapist to do this, a therapist that can give you the right skills to prevent this to happen, okay? You actually want to address the situation while it's happening. And so this is what happens. You have this argument, let's pretend that it's going to be via text message because obviously this is going to be a little harder if you're having an argument in person, okay? So a lot of times, and most of all lately with the new generations where everything is based off of text messaging, and the young
Yeah.
generations always on their phones, okay?
Yeah.
So you start chatting with a person and then eventually the tone is misread because there's no tone in the message. So the argument begins. Instead of keeping and escalating this to an actual text fight, people can turn towards AI and say, so this and this happened. We were talking about XYZ, and then I felt a little offended. I have a feeling that this is going to happen, blah, blah, blah. What would you suggest? Like, what's going on? And so you have that little side perspective. You have AI saying, it looks like you were using maybe like a hard tone, or maybe this actually touched a stroke over, whatever it is, a nerve because you already have some trauma in your past. Because eventually the more you use AI, the more it learns about you, about your habits, about your way of thinking. Sometimes you also feed AI with information. Like, for example, you just got your blood results back, and instead of going straight to the doctor, you're anxious, you want to know what's going on. So you upload the file to AI, and AI is going to tell you, yeah, it looks like your cholesterol is high and whatever. So eat more of this or eat more of that, for example. So that is just the whole database of information about you that AI is going to feed off of to provide any kind of responses that is related to you specifically in those moments. What happens is that then you ask, okay, so how should I respond to this? And AI starts giving you hints on how to respond, but it's going to give you the hint that is mainly AI generated based off of what the AI knows about you. AI doesn't
Mm.
know anything about the other person. It doesn't know how the other person is going to react. So if you know that your friend, example, had, I don't know, a trauma where they lost their parents, okay? You know that you have, there's a way of saying in Italy where it says you have to touch it softly because so you
Mhm.
have to actually, tread slowly.
How do you say it?
And
How do you
so
say it in Italian? How do you say it in Italy?
toccala piano, touch it
Whoa,
softly.
that
Yeah.
sounds
So
pretty cool.
yeah, so we have to touch it softly. So we have to
Yeah.
actually go slow and try to understand all the different perspectives. So my fear is that eventually people will rely on that message or those alternatives that AI is providing you. So you're going to use those to answer your friend. And instead of creating that bond or that communication aspect of what talking to another human means, everybody will just start using AI generated messages because I want to avoid have that feeling. I don't want them to get offended, but I don't want me to get hurt. And so basically, it's going to be like we're not going to be walking on eggshells, but it will feel like we're walking on eggshells because we're not being authentically us. We're not
Yeah,
using our brain to communicate with the other person. And
right.
so my project is, to actually warn people about this thing, but also teach them how to use it properly. So yes, you can still use AI to analyze the conversation up to the point where you need to realize that now it's the time to stop asking AI, and now it's the time to actually say, you know what? I would never tell my friend this thing in this way. I know that it's going to be hurt if I just use detachment. Because, for example, AI just told you, you know what? This sounds a little too emotional charge. Maybe you should just use a little bit of more detachment. While she doesn't know that my friend doesn't process detachment well. They
Right,
feel
right,
neglected,
yeah, yeah,
right? And
yeah,
so, okay, so I'm not gonna use your message AI. I'm gonna use the message the way that I want it. And if you want, I'll come back to you after I see the response of my friend. Maybe my friend doesn't even respond, but I want to use the message that I want to write and not the one that you're telling me to write. So,
mm,
so this is the situation. So, in terms of what you were asking and the whole point of where it's going to be something positive, where it's going to be something negative is this. Like my fear is that the fact that we need to have people out there that kind of like train humans to see the difference, to see
yeah,
where it's time to stop and when we can still rely on it. And it's kind of something that we're looking at it as of right now with everything that is happening in the world, where you have AI generated content and most of all videos.
yeah,
And you can tell in the comments where, we're joking about it saying, I'm so tired of all this AI generated content. But until when? Because we will get to the point where you have a video that is showing you exactly what happened and you will say this is AI generated when it's not, and vice versa.
mm,
That was something AI generated and the majority of people will say, oh, this is the reality. So who's going to be there to actually be, the devil's advocate? Who's going to be there to be, no, this is not AI generated, this is the truth, you have eyes to see, this is what happened. you
right.
know that's
I
the
I
only
assume
fear.
I assume you use WhatsApp too, right?
Hmm.
So there's a feature in WhatsApp where AI can help you
Detect.
or modify it, right?
Uh-huh.
I tried doing that and people are like, "What, bro? What are you?" They were like, "What?" I was like, I just wanted to see if they could tell the difference. But to your point, we will be in a future where people will have to have the discernment to know, like, is this AI generated or is this authentically human? And then what you're saying basically is even on social media today, we're seeing people already start to trickle in and say, I'm seeing all this AI generated copy out there. This doesn't feel good. So we're already seeing how the tolerance for lack of authenticity, lack of empathy is the tolerance is really low. Like if you're going to be using AI in these places, you have to use it correctly, right? Use AI as a way to help you. Maybe I'm not a good writer. Maybe like I have really bad, like, so for someone like me, I sometimes have typos, right? Like AI is a perfect use case for me to correct those typos, but I shouldn't be using AI to be like, you know what? Can you respond back to this person and just say I don't like it, and then AI just craft up this whole thing that it assumes it would be my tone, and then send it out there into the world where it's like, person's like, what? And then now you have all these people saying like it's gonna become static. It's just white noise because you can have the most compelling argument on social media, online, and blogs, but if it's like AI generated, it's like no, it's a fail. So that is going to be very interesting to see how things shape out in the future, but it just adds more fruit to the fact that we need humans to actually write. We cannot get rid of the writers because we already are seeing that humans are not extremely tolerable to a world that's completely articulated based on AI.
Right.
So,
Let me tell you something that actually popped in my head now that you were mentioning this. One thing, apart from the, the fear of people not being able to discern the things, another thing is that I've seen it firsthand, the way that the regulations are changing the way that AI is eventually also operating. So just to name something stupid, at the very beginning when you were using ChatGPT, you would ask some questions, it would provide you with an answer, okay? And then things started happening, world politics started happening. And now you ask the same questions a year after, and the answer is different. It's either avoiding the subject, or it's actually saying, I can't answer this for you. Or like, this is a very loaded question that I don't feel comfortable responding. So the way that the AI itself is being regulated, it's kind of not ending the way that I would want it to end, because it's also limiting me from using it the way that I want it. And so that is something that to me is more concerning than anything else. This, and also the fact that I would love, as a person who uses AI for work and, in general as just a tool and for what it is, to be able to tell when something is regulated or not. Example, you were saying that a lot of people now, even, like on LinkedIn or whatever, you can tell when something is written by AI.
mm,
And then sometimes you have people that are like, the M dash argument that came up on LinkedIn, the fact that there were writers that were using the M dash way before AI started overusing it. And so now people are overcorrecting their writing, removing all the M dashes from their content, because otherwise people will think that it's AI generated when it's actually written by a human being. So all
wow.
these little things, yeah. And I actually found myself doing it too. Like I was looking at, old books that I wrote back in the days. And sometimes you use the M dash when you want to have like a sort of an interpolation of topic
Mm,
within a sentence. I
mm,
stopped using that. And now I'm just going to use commas, because I don't want people to think that I use the AI to produce that content or that text.
wow.
So what is concerning to me is that regulation thing, like the fact that we need, like, there will be a point when the human being
Mm,
will feel like this is either being too regulated or not regulated enough, and now I'm kind of like in that situation where I don't feel comfortable anymore. So either they will stop using it for specific reasons, and they will just divert into not using it for, I don't know, content creation. They're just going to use it to compute something, and you use it as a computation tool. That regulate, the way that something is regulated is still something that is concerning to me, because you see the fact that as a producer, as an engineer of AI, I have to use specific, let's say, boundaries, and they're shaping the way that AI needs to be for other reasons that do not align with me anymore. I wanted to use AI as a tool to help me, and now I realize that it's not helping me that much, because you put all these limits,
right.
and I can't ask it, I don't know, like, what do you think about the world economy right now? And it's going to be like, oh, it looks like it's this and this and this. And I'm like, no, it's not. Why are you? It's not that it's lying, but you can tell that some limits have been put around
Yeah.
it, so it doesn't provide you with the answer that you need.
So it's not being, are you thinking like it's not being objective enough in a sense where it's being a little bit more like if I have a personal agenda, right, then maybe I can tweak the machine learning a little bit. So like for example, right, like there's a are you thinking like it's not going to just give you the fact, but maybe almost like an opinion, like okay, like you can look at the world economy in multiple ways. You can Some can argue it's going great, some can argue it needs a lot of help. But what is the fact? Like, where do we stand today, right? And
Correct.
are you saying that because of some of these guardrails, it may not give you the hard fact. It may give you something that's somewhat of a interpretation of what they think is what you're supposed to get.
Yeah, so I have a feeling that because of everything that it's been happening, we will get to the point where it's going to be so regulated that not even AI is going to help us anymore because it's kind of like you're inserting the bias into the machine,
Yeah.
right? Because you can't use this word, so whenever the user uses this word, just divert and do something else. I don't know. It always makes me laugh to see those videos on, on social media in general, where they show you how they're using AI and they go like, okay, so hey ChatGPT, I'm going to ask you a few questions now. Use yes for a positive response, use no for a negative response, and then use pair if it's a response that they told you you cannot give an answer to. And so they go like, is everybody's watching us right now? Yes. Is the American government watching us right now? Pair. So it's no, so it gives you the answer that you
Oh.
told, like all this kind of stuff. And so not to be, like a weird,
No,
plotter
no,
or
this is
whatever it's
cool.
called, a conspiracy theorist or
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
but this to say, obviously, this is just a joke and it's something that you see in social media, but it kind of gives you the idea of the direction that this is taking. So the fact that at the beginning, it was an open space where people would just go play around, see how it works. Oh, AI is cool, or no, AI has to be demonized or whatever. And now they say, okay, so people have started using AI to do this and this and this, so we need to limit it. And so they're limiting this and then they're limiting that. And we will get to that day where you cannot use it for anything because they're basically just going to kind of like algorithm the results out of it, just like they were
Mm,
algorithming the social media
yeah,
world. And
yeah.
so if I get to the point where it's not even helpful anymore to use it because you're limiting me so much that the responses that I'm getting don't make sense to me or they're not helping me enough, there will be a moment where people will either stop using it or they will have to learn how to, just like back in the days when you had to learn how to code in order to make your MySpace look different than the other
Yeah,
people that
yeah,
were
yeah.
using MySpace.
Yeah, yeah.
And so kind of, I think we will get there eventually, where I have to be able to learn how to customize, talking about customization and personalization, to customize and personalize my machine well enough so that I can actually still go around those limits. And so learning how to code my own MySpace version of AI so that my AI is going to look different than yours because yours maybe is still relying on the limits that the government has put on it. Mine is
Mm,
a little different. Mine is personalized. So if I want mine to be specific, I don't know, a AI that thinks about empathy and the psychological background of the answers that it wants to provide me, I can just customize it that way so that you don't just change the prompt, you change the actual structure of the way that the AI should work for me. And it's not going to work for you, it's not going to work for anybody else. And
mm,
so maybe we will get to the point where you either use the commonly regulated tool or you learn how to use it properly to make it your own and to make it specific for you. So first it was open, then it started getting regulated. Then it's so regulated that I can't use it anymore. So I have to learn how to make it my own. And that's where I will have to learn how to go into the system, open the HTML page, just
mm.
like we were doing with MySpace,
Yeah,
where
yeah,
you would just make it better so that it had the little hearts in the background,
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
things like that. But then it will become, I think it's the same history in repeating itself over and over when we will get to the point where we can actually personalize it we will have to pay for it. So like, and pay a lot, not like that right now you pay the subscription to have the premium version. So if
Ooh.
you want to use it the way that you want to use it, you have to actually use a lot of money, because otherwise everybody would do it. And this is not how it
Mm,
works.
mm. So stage one, adopt all the users possible. Stage two, then we're gonna start to monetize it by offering a premium service that you can't get out of, like Apple does me.
I think at the end of the day, it will just always be the same over and over. They give
Yeah.
you something, they hook you to the thing,
Mhm.
and once you're hooked and you just can't live without, they say if you want to make it yours and actually use it the way that you want to use it, you have to give us the
Gotta
money.
commit. Got it. Wow. Well, this was super fruitful, Laura. Thank you so much. So I'm gonna summarize this a little bit. So in summary, what we can say is copywriters are not going anywhere in the near future. There will be an evolution of their scope in day-to-day work, but there may even be a demand, a significant demand for copywriters in the future. And we just went over like all the different scenarios and use cases where AI curated content alone just won't do the trick. So we should encourage those who are still looking to pursue that career of being a copywriter, that they don't have to give up hope, that they can still, like, it's not like end of the world, what am I going to do? But now would be a good opportunity to start skilling up a little bit, introduce AI into what you're doing today. So that way in 2028, 29, when AI is no longer a nice to have, but it's a requirement for your resume, you're like good to go. That's awesome. And then are you working on any other projects? Like, are you doing any like side hustles, or people can find you or reach out to you if they needed your services?
Well, after the layoffs last year, I just said, you know what? So at the beginning, I was kind of heartbroken because I still love to be a copywriter, and work for companies and stuff. But then I took it as a sign from the universe. So I was like, you know what? Maybe you just need to focus on your things. And since my dream would be to just actually be a writer, I want to be a novelist, a screenwriter, I want to see my things in the movies and stuff like that, then my current projects are basically just advertising the books that I've been self-publishing for the past 10 years and
Okay.
see if that works. So, I can help copywriters if they want to, learn that, but I'm also going to tell people if you have that thing that you want to write books and stuff, even if, a lot of people are now relying on AI to write anything, use it. Use AI to give you, to do some brainstorming. And then you can, I don't know, I want to write a book about birds. Okay, so AI is going to give you a lot of different alternatives, and it will tell you can write books about watching birds. You can write books about how birds inspire you to write poems. So use it that way. But just don't use AI to write your own book. And so, if you want to be a writer, be a writer. Don't be an AI user
Be a writer,
for
don't
your
be an
books.
amazing.
Okay.
Yes.
And so, yeah, no, that's the only project that I have. I'm actually, brainstorming with AI. I'm giving it all the ideas and I said, I want to write about this and this and this. What would you suggest? And so to me, AI is a she. So she will just respond to me saying, oh, you can write a book about this and then you can write a book about that. And I said, okay. So I have all these projects lined up and then I'm just addressing one by one. And we'll see if 2026 will bring some more visibility so that I can start selling my books. We'll
Yeah,
see. We'll
yeah.
see. We'll see what the future will bring.
Yeah, yeah, and definitely share your website with me.
Hmm.
Love to, let people know where they can find your books. And for everybody also watching or listening on this one, you just heard a copywriter tell you exactly how she's going to use AI, as you heard that she's using it as a tool, and she's not leaning too heavily on that. So definitely reach out to myself or Laura if you need some copywriting, if you're struggling with copywriting, you're trying to get into the copywriting world,
Yeah.
hit us up and we'll see what we can do to help you. But Laura, thank you so much for coming today. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having
You are
me.
awesome. Any other last words before we let our
No, I
audience?
just wanted to thank you and then, say hi to the family, to the little
Yeah,
kids, hope everything is going great. And
yeah,
then, I'll be, a text away. Just,
yes,
text
yes,
me, let me know how you're doing. Just keep me posted.
definitely. Thank you. Uh, so